Good morning. Welcome to Bluegrass Middle School. I'm Tanya Jury. I'm the principal here at Bluegrass. I know that some of you drove quite a while to see us and are on what they told me a slow time, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know some of you are even on spring break. Ours got pushed to next week, so we are excited to have you here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our school. We are 6'8". We have about 600 students here, and we're very close to Fort Knox, so we're very transient. We have lots of students who come in. We had one this morning who's enrolling with us, and she was with us last year, and the kids came in. They're so excited to see her back. So you'll see students who have been with us since the beginning, and you'll see students who just joined us today. We have started this process with our 6th graders last year, and so they will be 7th graders, of course, this year, so they're in year 2. And then this year, we picked it up with our 6th grade coming in. So last year we trained what was called our 6th grade team. This year we trained our 7th grade team. Next year our 8th grade team will train. So we'll be fully implemented next year. So we're just going to see, well, I say we're just going to see, we're going to see 6th and 7th grade classrooms today. You'll actually see a couple of 8th grade classrooms too, because our 6th and 7th grade teachers who are doing this work have decided that they can't go back to the old way of teaching. So they have implemented this for their 8th grade classes, even though the entire 8th grade team is not involved. So you'll get to see it across multiple grade levels and multiple contents. I know that you probably have lots of questions, and I have so much more that I want to tell you. I think they've put aside some time for us for that this afternoon. I just kind of wanted you to see who you're going to be able to see, or hear who you're going to be able to see today. But I'm anxious to get started, and I will be able to answer any questions that you have. We've got a great team that's going to talk to you. We have students who are going to come in. That's my favorite part, just listening to the students. We had a 5th grade transition last week, and so we had a student panel for them, and then the parents came in that night, and we had the same student panel, and they were just like, your kids talk better than any adult I've ever spoken to. I'm like, I know. So I'm anxious for you all to hear them, and then we'll have a teacher panel a little bit later for you as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Shannon, and she is going to go over some knows and needs to knows with you, and then we'll let you see it in action.
Hi, good morning. I'm Shannon Duty. I am the Director of School and District Success for the Midwest for New Tech Network. We're a partner, so we've been working with Bluegrass since they started. We do the teacher training, we have a research arm, we're a national network of schools that have similar goals, and so I'm really excited to see you guys today. One of the things that we do with both students and our adults is what we call knows and needs to knows, and it's a way to tap into what you guys already know about why you're here, what's going on, and also a way to capture what you need to know to be satisfied or for this to be a successful day for you. So feel free to just start shouting out, like we'll start with the no's. What do you know about why you're here? Or about Bluegrass in general? And anyone can go, even if you know something that other people might not.
We're here to observe Project Baseline.
PBL. What else? And even if you don't know anything about the school, what do you know about why you came today?
I'm just interested to see what this looks like with the New Tech Network. Just kind of a day-to-day student and teacher experience.
My handwriting is terrible, but I promise I'll be able to read this back later so we can. If you can. Thank you.
I apologize.
Okay, so she was saying the day-to-day for students and teachers. What else?
The different types of supports that you guys give to the staff to make PBL work.
So staff supports?
Is that a know or a need to know?
Oh, a need to know. It's a need to know.
That's okay. That's all right. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place.
Costs is a need to know. What else do you guys need or want to know today?
I'm very interested to hear from the students and hear what their experience is like.
Which you will do. I think that's how we're kicking off, and that's the most fun part. So,
Like a timeline, how did it progress or implement in school from start to where you are now?
How about the teacher perception at the beginning of implementation until now?
so teacher perception over time. What else interests you today?
Accountability.
Accountability in terms of, can you say a little more about that?
I'm a two-part, so I am a teacher in one district and a school board member in another. And how you hold kids accountable as far as like a lot of parents at this age need a grade and they need a systematic way to know how their kids are doing. Because I do project-based learning, but I teach kindergarten. That's a whole other world.
Wow. Now I want to know a lot about your career. That's really
Has your schedule changed since you have like your daily schedule?
I'm curious about why here, and is this something that the district is going to pursue? Or has this been a school-based decision? And
It's definitely a story you'll hear. I think at lunchtime is when we held time for that.
I just want to tell you all these things. I want to tell you.
I know. Anything else that you guys are really interested in? And we'll revisit this throughout the day. All right, I think that's a great list.
So I have been on a couple of these visits to other schools, and I will tell you this was probably my most exciting part is listening to the kids, because when they tell the story, like that's all I needed to hear, what their experiences is like and what it's different. And I can tell you that these kiddos did this last week, as I was telling you, when our fifth graders came over, and then a couple of them sat in with our parents, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy because they're like, did you prompt them? Nope. They're just telling you. They're going to be real with you. I'm going to ask them some questions, and then I will allow you guys to ask questions too, so be thinking of anything that you want to know. I'm going to pass the microphone to you, Marco, and let you start by telling who you are and what grade level you're in, okay?
My name is Marco Hayes, and I'm a 7th grader at Bluegrass.
My name is Juliana Gregory, and I'm a 7th grader here at Bluegrass.
My name is Lucas Brackett, and I'm a 6th grader here at Bluegrass.
My name is Emilio Rice, and I'm a 7th grader here at Bluegrass.
My name is Isabella Maurer, and I'm a 6th grade.
My name's Leah Adele, and I'm a 6th grader.
All right, guys, make sure that you're real loud, okay, so that they can hear you in the back. So the first question I'm going to ask you, and it doesn't matter who answers, just make sure that you pass the mic so that the camera can pick it up, okay? What is project-based learning?
So project-based learning is basically a way of learning throughout the year with a series of projects. So basically just projects, more than you would have in a traditional classroom.
Anybody want to add? Feel free to just pass around.
It's like basically, usually when you go to school, you always like get a packet in front of you, but this gives us a chance to work with others and use our skills that we'll use in the real world.
Gigi, talk a little bit about that, using the skills in the real world. What skills have you learned through this process that you think you'll be able to apply?
So with project-based learning, we're using a lot more group work. So when you're collaborating with other students, especially ones that you may not know or like, it kind of relates to the real world, because when you get a job, you'll have to work with other coworkers you may not know or may not get along with, and you'll learn a lot of new skills, how to maybe present, because people struggle with public speaking too, and you'll present your projects to different people, and it'll teach you a lot of skills that help relate to that.
What is something, you talked about not
always getting along with someone, or sometimes you have to work with people that you don't even know. How do you all work through that in your groups?
So obviously there's going to be conflict when you're working in a group, and we have these things called group contracts that makes everyone state their role, and if there is an argument, there's a way to solve it, and we make sure that everyone works together and not have conflict through those group contracts.
Favorite project that you've done since you've been at Bluegrass?
Easy. Bottle rockets. No question.
Why was that your favorite, Lucas?
I got to launch bottle rockets.
Of course. Pass it around. I want to hear from everybody what their favorite project is.
Well, I mean, in math it's different because we call it problem-based learning, but I remember my 6th grade year, we made chocolate milk, but we used ratios and we incorporated it into that, like we used it inside of it. So that was one of my favorite projects.
My project is one that we're doing this year, and it's about culture, and you get to like show everybody where you really come from, like you're before you, and it's just really helpful to some people because they really don't know where they come from.
My favorite project would be in Miss Ruff's ELA class, where we learned about a water crisis. So in different areas of the world, we have water crisis, and we got to make an infographic about them and inform our classmates about our own culture and society.
My favorite project was the roller coaster project because I really like building things, and we also got to show it to people that actually work with that type of stuff.
My favorite project was the pop bottle rocket, like Lucas said. I liked working with people, and I just like launching rockets.
I really like what Isabella said, is that, you know, they did the roller coaster project and then they got to share it with other people. Who are some of these other people that you have shared your projects with instead of just turning something into your teacher? Who are some other people you've met along the way?
As for my favorite project, the water crisis project, we actually had someone come from the Hardin County Water District number 2, and she got to teach us about how they filter water and stuff and how they're helping different areas with these water crises.
For the roller coaster project that Isabella was talking about, we got to speak from people from the Department of Transportation, and they got to tell us about our roller coasters and what's good and what's bad about them.
Ali, I'm going to pass it to you. So you were a 5th grader last year. Talk a little bit about how your experience in a 5th grade traditional classroom is different than what you've seen this year as a 6th grader.
Well, in 5th grade, we did a lot of packets. We didn't really do hands-on, and we sat in groups, but we didn't do groups. But now, since I'm in 6th grade for project-based learning, we do a lot of like working together, talking together, and like group contracts. If you don't get along, then the group contract helps you.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
In a traditional classroom, you'll have lots of packet work, like Aaliyah was saying, and you'll also have lots of homework. But in project-based learning, there's not a lot of homework. As long as you complete your work in class and you're working on your project in class, you shouldn't have anything to do at your house unless you really want to make it better.
Gigi, you want to add something?
I think another thing that really helps with project-based learning, compared to traditional learning, it's a lot more hands-on and visual learning, because there's a lot of students that struggle just having somebody put a paper in front of their face and having to work that out. But with project-based learning, you're constantly moving and talking to other people, and you're engaging with other students, and you get to use a lot more visual learning, so it's easier for students to learn.
How have your grades changed since you started this process from a traditional to now?
As far as a traditional classroom, you're always going to be graded on a right or wrong answer. But as far as project-based learning, one of the ways we get graded is based on group work. If we're in a group and we have a classmate who didn't do any work and we had to do all the work, in a traditional classroom, they would get a good grade if you did a good job. But as far as project-based learning, you get the grade you deserve based on a grade that's called collaboration. As far as if you didn't do anything, you'll get the grade you deserve, and if you did something, you get the grade that reflects that.
How else are you graded? So we have collaboration. What else?
There are also different things besides collaboration. And there's also written communication and I believe oral communication. And those help you get graded on other things besides your knowledge and your thinking.
Anybody want to add to that? Anybody still have to take a test?
Yep.
Yes. Anybody have to write a paper?
Yep.
It's still school.
That's correct.
What questions do you all have for them?
Mondo, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Talk about how long a project lasts. Are they all about the same, some longer, some shorter?
It matters what you're doing. Like, so first we start with our contracts, and then like after that, like so another week pass, we start bringing things in and start building, and it goes about maybe a week or two, depending on how long the project was going to take.
So you do new contracts for each project?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And how do the contracts differ?
They're a lot kind of the same. Like, there's either, you got me, I'll usually be the peacemaker, and then there's other ones that's like leader, and the one who has to bring more stuff in. It's like, basically like that. Like on this project I'm doing right now, I have to bring stuff in.
Gotcha. So you learned some things about you. Did you know you were a peacemaker before you started doing this, or did you find out you were a peacemaker by doing the project?
Well, I guess I've always been one, because I've never been the one just like if there's an argument going on, I just try to calm it down, you know, just try to figure out what's best for the group. And yeah, I guess I've always been a peacemaker. But this project has really helped that.
Thank you.
Do you have a question there?
I was just thinking, do they intermix like their subject areas to where it's just one subject, one project that's going along with that subject area, or is it intermixing of different subjects that's going into that project? Are they collaborating with other subject areas when they're working on projects? Because they could encompass different subjects. If you're looking at math and you're looking at maybe something that may be science related, to where they're intermixing between the two, like building rockets and distance and things like that, or something of that nature? Or is it just strictly one subject area that your projects are being compiled from?
So as far as my experience, we haven't really been intermixing subjects, as it is our first and second year of implementing this in our learning. But yeah, we have not influenced or intermixed our different subjects. But that's a good idea.
Yeah, we haven't really done that a lot, but like you were talking about the bottle rockets, I do believe there was a bit of math, because we had to like incorporate some of that into building our rockets, a bit of math in doing that. I don't know if they did that in 6th grade or not, but.
What novel are you reading with the rockets? Lucas, the novel that you're reading with the rockets?
We are reading The Martian, classroom edition. Because there's a lot of naughty words.
So that is a great question. That is our year 4 and 5 plan. So once we have everybody implemented fully across the school in all grade levels, then that is the plan to start combining some curricular. But they are reading a novel right now in their 6th grade science class as they go along with building and launching the rockets.
And there are ERQs, and I've had ERQ in every single subject, I'd say. So I guess we're mixing writing into all of our subjects.
Because we do.
Extended response.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have for them? Aren't they fabulous?
Yes, question. Go ahead, Mr. Flynn. So you all talked a lot about last year, before you did this, you had packets. And I can tell by listening to you that you really enjoy the project-based learning, like it's fun, right?
Yeah.
So how would you compare your learning in terms of how you're able to remember things, like remembering what you've learned, and your level of understanding compared to now versus like when you just did the packets?
Well, back to like elementary school, when we did that, it was like, because we've been doing this for 2 years now, it was a lot harder for me to like retain some of the things I was learning, because I'm more of a visual learner, so when somebody's explaining things to me and I'm working with other people, the content kind of like, it sticks in my head a little more. So I'd say with project-based learning, I'm able to retain some of the content that I'm learning a little bit better.
Anybody want to add?
In the traditional classroom, when you're working with packets, normally you'll only go on over a subject or a category once, and I forget a lot of things. But in project-based learning, you'll go over the same things just to reassure that you know them with the test after and things like that, which is where that's incorporated, so we can still learn.
So for me, I am a visual learner. So like in 5th grade, it was a little bit hard for me because we would always do paper stuff, and we would go over it one time, and then the next day we would move on to a different thing. But in 6th grade, you do a lot of things, like you work on it for a week, so it's actually like in your brain, I guess you could say.
Okay, so I'm that kind of person, like in 5th grade, like I'm that kind of person that moves with their hands. Like I like moving my hands around, touching things, feeling things. But like in 5th grade, we did packets. So like Isabella said, we would like move on like the next day. So I would like forget everything that I did. But in project-based learning, we can actually like move with your hands, build stuff. That's mostly the things I like about it.
Do you have a question?
I do. First, a comment. First of all, Leah, you made me bring my notebook. It's Aaliyah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brought my notebook out because I heard you say I'm going to get the quote right, so when I use it, I don't mess it up. In the past, we sat in groups, but we didn't do groups. Is that what you said?
Something like
like
that.
that? I want to get that. I was like, wow, that's perspective there. Classroom edition, man.
Yes.
Tell me your name.
Lucas.
Lucas, all right, got it. Give Lucas a mic. I got one for him. So you said, there's going to be conflicts. Like, that's just a natural thing in groups. But, like, sometimes as adults, we don't think there's supposed to be conflict in groups, or we, like, get a little anxious about that. But you all act like it's just part of the deal. If you're going to make progress, you're going to have conflict. So it's really neat for folks your age to see that. So tell me about productive conflict versus, like, has there been, like, tell me when you know the heat is too high and the conflict's not productive anymore. Just talk me through, you don't have to use names, but tell me some experiences you've had related to conflict in this project-based learning.
Well, in my social studies class right now at Ms. Harmon, we're doing a presentation about ancient China, and you said not throw names. I'm not going to throw names, but there are a few people that have been in some trouble and haven't even been able to go to class because of that, and they haven't done any work, but I've had to take over their roles. And when, they'll get back tomorrow, and that's when we're presenting tomorrow. And I know that's not productive for them. As we talked about the grading, they will not get a good grade because of that.
Also know I've been in a group with Amila before, and we get in a lot of disagreements sometimes just because, we have different opinions on what we decide to do for our project, which is normal with other people. But we always come to some kind of agreement, whether we take a vote, we could do majority rules within our group because that's just easier to decide. And we're not, salty, I guess, about it. So, when thing doesn't go our way, we don't get in our feelings.
That's great.
I've been in classrooms where they've even done rock, paper, scissors to decide whose thoughts they were going to go with. Talk to them a little bit about your knows and needs to knows. They did knows and needs to knows this morning, and for some of them, it was the first time that they had seen that process. You guys are used to it now. Talk to them about what that looks like when you use it in your class, how you use it, that kind of stuff.
So knows and needs to knows is something we use towards the beginning of our projects, and it's kind of a setup or a template, I guess, we use to try to organize things to see what we already know about a project and what we need to figure out. So it's just basic things we already know about our project.
Anybody want to add anything to it? What other questions do you all have for them?
So you guys, in describing your experience, it looks a lot different than elementary school, a traditional classroom that you guys have been talking about. What's some advice that you might give to a teacher who was thinking about, I'd really like to do PBL, but it's kind of scary because it's a lot different. What's some advice you might give teachers who were thinking about doing that?
I would say just don't be afraid to it's going to take a lot of preparation. I know last year, some of the 6th grade teachers, they they had to kind of talk with each other and figure out some of the things that they were going to do because this was a brand new thing to them. So I would just say, like, don't be afraid to dive into it and learn how to do it, because once you get the hang of it, it's actually a lot better for you and your students.
I would also say, like, be ready to actually be a teacher. So if you was an elementary school teacher, you'd hand them out a packet, say do it, they turn it in, you grade it, it's all good. But once you're when you're doing project-based learning, you're a project-based learning teacher, you have to actually pay attention to them, you have to help, you have to guide them through this lesson, because we're little kids, we can do it by ourselves. So just be ready to be a teacher.
What if I told you I've decided Bluegrass is not going to be project-based learning anymore? We're going back to traditional.
No.
What would you say to convince me don't do it? What would be your thoughts?
Okay. I would be like, because I really like project-based learning. It's like better than 5th grade kind of, what we did in 5th grade. So I would like beg you to keep on doing it, because it's better for me and it's better for like the real world, because you do that stuff whenever you're an adult.
I'd show you a recording of this panel.
That would sell it, Lucas.
Yeah,
Done.
because you seem really happy about project-based learning right now. And I'd be like, look at the smile on your face. I know you like project-based learning. Bring it back.
Even though some students may not realize it, project-based learning has helped a lot of them, especially us. Like, I'm sure there's like statistics to prove something, but I'm pretty sure our test scores have gone up. It's taken off, I mean, me personally, I know it's taken off a lot of stress off of me, because when I work with other people, we're able to talk about it and get what we need to get done.
Well, without project-based learning, I'd be talking like this. Project-based learning has helped me better with public speaking, just talking better. Like, oral communication is a part of our grade, so I've had to learn, because sometimes we present our projects. We'd have to learn like how to talk, basically, how to talk in a clear and a more grammar used way.
I know when I was in elementary school, I really struggled getting done with work, because I used to I used to just get the packet and I used to kind of just zone out, because I was like when I'm working, it don't have to be like so much fun, but like I gotta kind of be interested. And it was just a packet with just letters on it. It's just kind of hard for me to understand what's happening. So when I'm with a group and there's like more hands-on things, and I can really understand what's happening.
Like DG said, for the iReady scores, I'm gonna be truthful. Like last year in 5th grade, they weren't as great as I wanted them to be, but this year, they boosted up a lot by doing project-based learning. It helps me a lot.
Is it sunshine and roses every day?
No.
What's something, excuse me, what's something that hasn't gone as well that you thought might, or something that you feel like areas we still need to grow?
I mean, it's hard to kind of blame this on project-based learning, but I think this is more just kids coming into middle school and this being brand new to them. I think some may struggle just, you know how it's a lot of group work? Some may struggle just even getting to talk to people they don't know. So with project-based learning being brand new to them, this isn't something we can prove with project-based learning, but it's just students. They're gonna feel like this is brand new, and they're gonna be maybe a little nervous to talk to other people. But with time, I feel like that will get a little better.
You're right. I mean, and I'm still in some thunder here, Milo. I'll turn it back over to you. But whenever you look at the way that you have been learning your whole life, and then all of a sudden we're changing that mindset, it is very different. It's very different. Good point.
Now we have to, she has a question.
Have you all experienced burnout from all of the different PDLs that you've done? Do you ever go like, oh man, no?
I've definitely been in like, say my third class of the day and been like, oh, I got to go to that class and do that work and that really hard project. I've definitely experienced that before, and it can definitely make you a bit more tired than writing down on that packet, but with time, you know, it makes you smarter and it makes you a better person in the real world. So I think the tiny bit of burnout that you get, I'd say it's worth it.
Burnout, as far as if I didn't finish my work, I would have to go home and finish it again, and usually that takes a lot of time because I'm at home and there's a lot of distractions. So then the homework drags on for longer and longer, and then I want to go to bed. I want to end it all. Not, I want to go to bed. I want to go to bed. That's what.
So what kind of feedback do you all get compared to what you would have done in 5th grade, like with your graded work? With this, do you get more feedback from your peers or from the staff?
Well, if I'm like answering this question correctly, I think they're not just going to tell you like whether you did it right or you got the question right. I think they're going to explain how you did like on specific other area skills. So when you're presenting something, they'll talk about how you did with voice projection or there's other skills within that, and I think they'll normally give us feedback about things we can improve on in those areas.
Question. It's a two-part question. First question, do you still do textbook work or is it solely projects? And second part of the question, how does your teachers make sure that the knowledge you're gaining is not just, well, I know how to build a rocket, you have to take this, just the process of building the rocket, but the part of what does each part of that rocket represent in science, that kind of thing.
All right, so I can answer your first part of the question. Oh crap, I done lost it.
They still do textbook type work.
Oh yeah, okay, so for example, in Mr. Fuller's science class, third period, social studies, yeah, we are learning about culture, and our project is on culture, but as we're going on with the project, we have like little snippets of work, like you have to like an ed puzzle, you have to do that, or a Google form, just fill that out between every project. So we're not just doing projects. It's, yeah, like I said before, it's still school.
So your second question was like making sure we know what's behind that rocket and not just making it. We still incorporate tests into our learning. I'd say it's every 2 weeks, because that's probably the end of every project, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And he makes sure that we know what each part represents. And and depending on our grade, he will give us feedback and remind us, and he'll let us rethink, and after a bit he'll let us retake the test in our new mind.
Another great thing is like sometimes, I'm not sure if this is for every teacher, but some teachers at the end of each project or unit will kind of do this reflection thing, so you can go over maybe things that you've learned, like what was something that really helped you throughout this project, what is one thing that could use improvement. So it's talking about what you learned and also how you worked with your group and how that went. So I think those reflections actually really help. And we also do ERQs or written responses sometimes. We'll just talk about how our project went and what we learned within it.
What are talk about some of your projects. I know, Tuji, you were talking about earlier the chocolate milk project. What was the standard or the learning target that you had during that time? What math was behind that?
It was 6th grade, but I'm pretty sure it was just asking, it was our success criteria, I guess, is just asking how can we incorporate ratios into real life scenarios.
So I did the same project, but we did lemonade, and it was ratios and measurement when we were doing that type of stuff. Like our ratios and how much do you make for this and how much goes into this.
You mentioned the roller coaster one. Do you remember what the science?
I was going to talk about.
So, you're welcome. So the roller coaster, he had been talking to us about Newton's laws and motion, and he did that roller coaster project to help us understand that. So on our arc or something, we would have to get enough accelerate. It would have to be high enough to have enough acceleration to go through, and he would ask us, all right, so based on what you just saw, what law is that like incorporating? So.
I also think it's really great because this is our second year doing it, and some of us 7th graders, we can still remember projects that we did last year and what we got out of that. So like, I mean, I probably did that ratio project a year ago now, and I still remember almost everything we did and what we learned from it. So I think that's really neat.
I have a question about your parents. So as you all have kind of changed the way that you are at school, how do your parents feel about it? Have they come to some of your presentations? Have they seen you change as a learner? Have you talked with them about it?
Okay, so my grades last year weren't as great, but now I got all A's this quarter. I was really proud of myself. So it helped me, and I actually talked to my parents about how like it's helping me more for the project-based learning.
Okay, so whenever I go to my parents and I'm like, so we did this project, because I tell them what I do like when I get home from school. Sometimes they'll be like, I don't even know what this is, because whenever they were like younger, they didn't really do project-based learning type of stuff. But now that we do, like, they think it's like really better for the kids because they get to learn more stuff.
And I'm gonna call on you too. I don't know if you talk to your brother at all, if y'all talk at all. But Isabella has a brother who's an 8th grader here too, so he's in more of like the traditional classroom for the most part. Have you all had any conversation about how your learning's different?
I mean, like, I'll ask him some stuff, like, what did he do? And it is kind of different because, well, he's also in a different grade, and the stuff will be different because of the math. But in other projects, it's kind of the same.
Lucas has something to say, I think.
I think you mentioned parents being able to watch presentations. I don't believe I've seen that yet, unfortunately. So I haven't seen a parent like watch their kid present. But all I know is when I come home, my mom asks me what I do at school, and she looks at my report card and she says she's proud of me, and that's all I care about.
I remember last year when we did panels, our parents were able to watch it online or something, but they were just surprised because they were like, I remember when I was in school, I would have never been able to go in front of a group of adults and start talking as loud and just as fluently as you guys are doing, so they were very proud of me for that. And normally with projects, when I'm working on a Google slide presentation, I'll ask my dad or my mom and be like, hey, can you guys watch this real quick and try to tell me things I can work on before I have to present tomorrow? And they'll watch it, and they're just normally really shocked or impressed.
How did your teachers prepare you for presentations so that you feel comfortable communicating up in front of class?
Well, sometimes when we work in groups, we normally go over things, but I know in Miss Ruff's class, I mean, we had some ed puzzles that would even tell us things that for just presentations, like this is what you can do in presentations and this is what you can work on. But once you're so used to doing presentations and you're working in groups, it kind of just becomes natural when you're kind of practicing and reading in front of other people.
In Miss Ruff's class, like she said, we are working on presentation. We were working on presentations, and she guided us through. She's like, for example, she was like, make sure you say this, or make sure you talk this way. Just different ways to help us with presenting, and different ways to help us with what we're learning.
And also, sometimes in my class, we'll do a rough draft. So, first we'll do it like on paper, and we'll write it down, and then we'll go to the teacher, and she says it okay, then we'll do it on the actual paper. So then that would be our.
I know some kids are very, very afraid that people are going to judge them when they get up in front of the class. And I will say, I don't have a problem with that myself, but I know a lot of people that do have problems with that. And I have seen the staff go over to them, one person, just to one person, and talk to them and reassure them that everything's going to be okay. and once they get on in front of the whole class, they improve a lot from what I've seen at the beginning of the year, and how they're a lot more confident as themselves and what they were.
I'm going to ask you all one more question, and I'll hear from all of you. What is one area that you feel like you've grown since you've been a student here?
I'm gonna have to say definitely reading, because like in my 5th grade we did like, we still did like this end of the year reading test, and I didn't do that good. But like ever since I got into 6th grade and we started reading with project-based learning, I really gotten like way better than I was earlier.
Why do you think that is?
I feel like it's more in your brain because when you just got a packet in front of you or just some paper in front of you, you like see some things that you remember, but like when you remember, oh, I remember when that happened in Mr. Ford's class or anybody's class, you like, oh yeah, you gonna always remember it.
I've personally improved with public speaking, so when I've gotten comfortable and with just communicating with other people in general. So when we do panels like these, or when I just do presentations with other people, I've gotten a lot better at some of those skills.
Such what Marco said about reading, from my experiences in elementary school, they'd give us a short passage, we answer the questions, he tells us if it's right or wrong. The teachers here, they read novels with us, and when Mr. Sexton was here, he read Brian's Winter with us, and we did many projects based off of that. And we did a project on how to survive in the boreal forest, which was a presentation. And so I like being able to work with my teachers and with my peers instead of just being in a group and not being a group and answering these questions on my own, really.
Spin off of what Gigi said, I have gotten better at public speaking, because as far as 5th grade, I used to talk in a lot of slang, and even my parents noticed. Once I got to 6th grade, and then even more into 7th grade, I've gotten better at talking and just using better grammar.
I've definitely gotten better in math, because when I was in 5th grade, I wasn't the best at math because I was a little scared to ask my teachers, like, if it was wrong or anything, because we didn't have like the best like connection. But now that I got into 6th grade, I feel like that my teacher, like, I can go up and to ask him and I can talk to him.
Okay, mine is like Gigi and Amila said, speaking, because before I would go up in front of the classroom and like I would have like a great piece, but then I would freeze. I was so scared. But now I come up here and I like working with everybody and like going, and it goes up with the flow.
Any last minute questions before we get them back to class?
Can you explain, you talked about different contracts, the one where you have to bring stuff in, what do you mean by that?
Bring stuff in, like for this culture project, we're bringing in this box, it's like a shoe box, and putting things from your culture inside of it. So like I brought like a shoe, but it's like a shoe that's basically shows off Africa, you know. So like you have to bring stuff in.
Also, I think you also like. The materials are kind of split within the group, but everybody is listed on the contract what they're expected to bring, and if they don't bring it, that'll affect them. So that's also. Any other questions?
That's fine. When you all are doing community agreements, and I've heard you talk about this a little bit, and you're setting up your roles for your projects, can you talk about, because I've been in your classes before and heard you all, as you start talking about these roles and who might be good at what, and you talk about each other's assets, or what strengths everyone brings to the table. Can you talk about that a little bit, and maybe what you recognize in your peers, like you're a good artist, or you're like, and how that plays into your projects?
So actually on the group contracts, we actually have a space because we kind of talk about and choose who's going to do what. We have a space where we can list the strengths and why we think somebody would be good for that role. So if there's a project team leader, under it you'll put, I think they'd be a good leader because they have good leadership roles and they can get things done and stuff like that. Does anybody want to add on to that?
You could also say if we had to draw something, I know someone who is a very good artist in one of my classes, so I could, if they were in my group, I can get them to draw the thing that we need to draw. So she's a good artist. So.
Anything else?
Yeah, any more questions?
Anything you all want to say today?
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being in here. I appreciate you taking time out. You guys can hit the third period.
All right, so real quick, we've obviously got the student perspective, and I think, are students taking us on the tours too?
No, they're gonna, we'll do that, and then we'll take them into the classroom.
Okay, so we'll see students in the classroom too, so I think that covers this one.
And when you're in the classrooms, feel free to talk to the kids and ask them what they're doing, why they're doing it. Don't hesitate to talk to them. They're used to it, so they're fine.
Yeah, I think those are the two perfect questions, especially like, what are you learning? Why are you learning it? That's typically when we do walkthroughs, what we'd like to start to see the answer. We like to see kids being able to answer that instead of, I don't know, teacher told me to, I don't know, it's on my packet.
And you might still hear that.
You might, like it takes a while, but ask the kids that. Is there anything else that you want to add to this after what you just heard?
I think under cost, maybe how that cost, not just the cost itself, but how it's paid for.
Absolutely.
That's something we can cover later. I'm pointing at Brandy, she's looking away.
And I'm assuming, they talk about their end project, but I'm assuming that and they mentioned that there were things that were going on in between. I'm assuming there's like that informal grading that's taking place, that they are receiving those type grades, and then also this summative grade with either the presentation of their project or the test, because they mentioned there was a test. So I'm assuming there would be daily grades, or there's something that's ongoing throughout this, keep them on track.
Our site-based policy, and we'll get to this later too, but our site-based policy is 1 grade per week. They have to have recorded at least 1 grade per week. And so we'll talk about benchmarks a little bit later, but there are benchmarks along the way that they have to meet.
I think Danielle will probably dig into that too.
Yeah.
Danielle's going to do a project deep dive for us this afternoon, so you can see how she breaks it down from a teacher perspective.
Would that include like some copies to look at of the contracts and things like that?
We can make that happen.
Okay.
Absolutely. Cool. Let's split up into groups and.
So we are going to split into 2 groups. I am going to let you go to the restroom before we go see some classrooms. But we'll split up into 2 groups. One group will go see 4 classrooms, and then one group will see 4 different classrooms. So everybody won't see the same ones, but you'll get to see some good things happening.
When you get over here, do the ed puzzles first. Do the thesis statement part of the worksheet second. What do you do first? What do you do second? There we go. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing for these station rotations? No. Okay. Group 1, raise your hand. Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, Group 5, and we do not have a Group 6. Jay, can you hit the 1-minute timer for me? Go ahead. Group 1 starts with me. Find out where you're going and move. Now, if you all remember, we read these 2 articles, right? Competition Builds Better Dancers, and then The Dark Side of Dance, okay? Who remembers what the debate or the overall question or topic was? If what? If dance what? Let's be specific. If dance competitions were good. So at the top of your paper, either next to your name or underneath your name, I want you to write that question. Are dance competitions good for dancers? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to make yourself a T-chart on your paper that looks like this. A T-chart. It can be in the middle or on the side. You choose. That works. And on one side, I want you to write good. On the other side, I want you to write bad. Let me see. Okay. Now, I want you to just start listing. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I want you to list all the good things that you can think about dance competitions, and then list all the bad things that you can think about dance competitions, okay? I want you to write and list until the time is up. Go. So for you, this is going to work a little bit different because you don't have your essay written out just yet. I want you to pick which reason do you want to use, this one, or this one. This one? Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up with 2 separate complete sentences related to this reason here, okay? And then you're going to walk through this formula to pick a connecting word and make a compound sentence out of it. Okay, I just want you to try. I want you to come up with 2 sentences related to this. Okay. 4, 3, 2, and stop where you are. Tell me, which list was longer for you? Good. Faisal, which list was longer for you? Good. Chase? Good. Good. So, to be honest, writing with the claim that dance competitions is good would be better for you. Why would I say that? Why would I say that would be the best way to go? Right now. Go ahead, Jay. You're right. You're thinking positive, and you already kind of know more things, right? Like you're able off the top of your head to jot down more ideas about the good side versus the bad side, right? So I want you to take a look at your good side, and I want you to circle 3 things from your good side.
All right, go ahead and open up envelope 2, read the cards, and then sort them into hook, bridge, thesis. Go ahead, you can go ahead and open and start. So remember, once you think you've got it sorted, I need a thumbs up so I know you're ready. Remember, your hook engages your reader, your bridge gives background, your thesis provides a claim. All right, I would like our next group, Matthew's group, you can either send a designee or up as a group. Go ahead and come sort on the Jamboard. Oh my God, wait, all the way around. You can do it, Jaden.
Yeah. Oh, Jaden. Yay.
So you think, got it? All right, so thumbs up if we agree, thumbs down if we disagree. Got some mixed signals here. All right, thank you, Jenny. We'll have you sit down. Renell, which ones do y'all have switched? Okay, so they have because first, in the past second, and people should last. Chloe, what did y'all have? Or Nyla, what did y'all have?
We had in the past first, because second, and then people last.
Okay, so in the past, then because, and then people should. Rylan, what'd y'all have?
People should because then you have.
All right, so let's see what we got. So first is in the past. Middle is because. Last is people should spend.
Okay, guys, so here's the part you're leaving where you are, and we are rotating. Okay, so take your rubric and your marker and a pencil if you had that. Stand. All right, Zach, you guys are coming here. Talon, you are going right here. Victoria, you all are moving this way. Bree, you all are going where Brayden is. Brayden, you're going to Tiana's team. Mary, you all are going here. All right. This time around, you can look at the feedback the team gave before you and add to their feedback. You are also working with your team on sourcing. We just did support, so now you're looking at how well did they follow the rubric in providing sources in their writing sample. All right, thumbs up, how many of you all provided feedback to the team's comment before you? Okay, so maybe questioning, getting clarification, agreeing with what they said, disagreeing with what they said, adding to their comment maybe. All right, how many of you all, thumbs up, gave a score on your rubric for sourcing? Okay, so with your team, take 30 seconds and confer. What score would you give this writing sample based on sourcing only? And then we'll rotate.
We have those pushed on the wall earlier. Talon, if we need to move them, let me know.
So we have groups here with us today who are part of GREC, and so they have come through to see our project-based learning and problem-based learning in action. And so we're going into our 6th and 7th grade classrooms and a few 8th grade classrooms to watch the students actually do what we're saying they're going to do. They're collaborating. That you have some oral communication with the presentations, written communication. Agency is a big part of what we ask them to do, and advocating for themselves and learning the standards through knowledge and thinking. So that's what we're seeing as we rotate through our classes today.
So we're going to start our project that I told you a little bit about last week, okay? This is our scenario. Are you ready? All right, so there's a new city coming to town. The mayor, that's me, is seeking blueprints of potential layouts of this new city. So your group, the way that you're sitting now, okay, you're going to be tasked with designing the ideal city that would become a model for all upcoming cities across the country. So that's what we're doing. Yada yada, you don't need that yet. As a team, so as a group that you're sitting with, you are going to design, take measurements, and give presentations of your best design, okay? By the end of this week, you will have designed, built, and found measurements, we're talking area, volume, and surface area, of your city, okay? So now your brainstorming is going to start. You are going to go to your Echo agenda, so open your Chromebooks. You're going to do it on paper. I'm going to get paper for you. No, you have to do it on paper. So in your Echo agenda, at the very bottom, there is a knows and need to knows. You might have to click 4th 9 weeks because that's where it is. So you're going to click knows and need to knows. That's not the right thing, Tristan. It says knows and need to knows. Everybody see this? And then once you open it, you're going to create an attachment. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this individually. What? Oh, I got it, yeah. Go Guardians on. So you're going to have 5 minutes to come up with 4 no's and 4 need to knows on your own. Okay, I've just disabled Go Guardian, so you should be good. Okay, so what do you know about what I've tasked you with? I'm going to pull this back up so you can read it. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, you're going to make Post-it notes with your team. So I need 4 no's and 4 need to knows. What you know, Jordan? What you do? Okay, if you don't have 4 on each side, that's okay. I promise it's okay. What you're going to do now, I have given each group 3 pink Post-its and 3 yellow Post-its. Okay, every group should have 1, or 3, 6. The yellow represents what you know. The pink represents what you need to know. Okay, so as a group, you're going to put 1 thing on each Post-it. This is where you get to talk about your knows and need to knows. Okay. So on the yellow, what do you know about what we're doing? On the pink, what do you need to know? I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this, and then we're going to put it on our know and need to know chart up here. Okay? So this is where you get to talk as your group.
I hope that you were able to see some things that maybe answered some questions, maybe sparked some more questions. So we'll start back here with our knows and needs to knows real quick just to see if there's anything that we want to add or if we have answered any of our questions. By the time that you leave here today, all of these questions will be answered, I promise. Anything that you felt like that you have an answer to now that you've been able to be into some classrooms that we talked about this morning? Or do you have other questions we want to add that you saw something that sparked that maybe we need to know to make sure that we get answered?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our process and how we got here and where we're going and what it's going to look like for Bluegrass. I have a teacher, Miss Vincent, who will be joining me shortly, and then I may call on Miss New as well to talk about the district perspective. 2 years ago, I guess, Miss New and I met, and we were talking about what we wanted for Bluegrass Middle School. My biggest thing whenever I talk about our school is I want opportunities for students. And I've told 1,000 people this, and I'll say it over and over. I never want a student to say, I can't do because I'm from Bluegrass Middle School, or I can't be because I'm from Bluegrass. That's not an option for us. And so we had to look at ways to make sure that our students did have opportunities. And so Brandy was on the same brain wavelength as I am, which can sometimes be a little scary, but we're there. And we decided we needed to see what was out there. I'll let her tell you her story about how that all came to be with New Tech. But we partnered with New Tech, and I wanted to start with our 6th grade team because I wanted to see it through. I wanted to make sure that I got to see these 6th graders start and then how they developed as 7th graders and then 8th graders before we sent them on to high school. One of the things that was very important to me is to make sure that I had the right team in place in the 6th grade teaching. Training. I had to have teachers who were willing to take risks. I had to have teachers who knew that it's okay. It's not going to be perfect every time. It's going to be hard work. I wanted teachers who I knew weren't afraid to collaborate. A lot of times we get into the mindset that we're going to go in our classrooms, we're going to close our door, and that's it. I'm going to do my thing my own way. And so I did move people. I moved people out who I did not feel like were ready for that work, and I put people in place who I felt like that they would be. But the people that I moved out, you know, that conversation was very delicate, but at the same time, they knew coming up, this is going to be here for 7th grade. And then the next year, it's going to be here for 8th grade. So the 6th grade team, they went through training together, and they grabbed a hold of it and ran with it. And I told them at the beginning they had to do one project-based lesson in the fall semester and one in the spring, because I didn't want them to feel like it was projects every single day, because it's not. And so they did their first one. It went very well. There were some things that we had to change, and they were like, can we only do one in the fall, or can we do more? And I'm like, you can do more. And they're like, oh, thank God, because I can't go back and do it the other way. They already saw the value after doing one. And so they did several their first year. And Danielle's coming in. I'll let her talk a little bit about that. We knew that the next year, 7th grade was going to be doing this work. So we provided them opportunities to sit in on a teacher panel, to sit in on a student panel, to go in and observe the classrooms just like you all did today, so that they could ask the questions. They were nervous, as they should be. They've never taught this way before. And so they went in and they were able to see it. They were able to ask those questions. And so it helped them to become a little more comfortable. Our students went into their 7th grade classrooms and taught their teachers. They were like, we got to do a community agreement, and this is how we have to do it. And so the teachers learned a lot from the students too, because the 6th graders had already been through this process. I had a question as we were walking along about resistance. There was some, and they knew that this is the direction this school was going. I did have one retire. He said, this isn't for me. Okay, well, this is the direction we're going, because this is what's best for kids. And that's what we've done. 8th grade, same thing. They know that they're coming on board next year, so they've sat through teacher panels, they've sat through student panels, they've gone in to observe it. We took it a little step further with them. We're doing this work through PLCs, through faculty meeting. Anytime that we have a professional learning day, our 6th and 7th grade teams work with New Tech to continue their learning, and I work with the 8th grade team to give them bits and snippets of it, so that they don't come in overwhelmed and not knowing anything about what's going on. So I feel like that our 8th grade team, even though they haven't started this work, they're further along than they would have been, because they have learned about knows and needs to knows. They've seen that. They've heard the terminology. We did what's called a book-in lesson. You may hear that at some point during the day. They have implemented book-in lessons this year. It's not a full-blown project. It's taking a part of the rubric, looking at that, assessing yourself, and then doing a snippet. So they have been a part of that. We have had teacher panels, we've had student panels, we've had groups like this come through and see. We have, and you may hear more about this during the teacher panel with the staff supports, but one of Ms. Vincent's roles that we changed this year, last year she was just a 6th grade language arts teacher. We knew this year that 7th grade was going to need support too, so she teaches 6th grade, she teaches a 7th grade class, and then for 2 periods a day she is a PBL support coach. 1 period technically designated for 6th grade, 1 period technically designated for 7th grade. 8th grade has asked her lots of questions. She's had questions from other schools in the district asking her questions. And so she has been a huge support for them. We have a PBL website that she has created and added all of our projects to, our benchmarks, our rubrics, all the things, so that we can keep a repository of those items, so that we can go to it. We can share it with our 8th grade team, for example, when they're saying, I don't know what this looks like. They can go and look at it. You guys are going to have an opportunity to see that this afternoon. As I talked about, we do this in PLCs. We completely revamped the way that we do PLCs because of this work. We talk about it in faculty meetings. It's the language. It's the change in culture. This is the way we do things at Bluegrass Middle School, and it's the way that the students are talking. It's the way the teachers are talking. The administration, the way we talk to parents has completely changed because of that. So I kind of talked a little bit about my timeline of implementation. So first year was 6th grade, second year was 7th grade, third year was 8th grade. Year 4 and 5 is when the plan is to get more into the cross-curricular. Okay, so everybody is on board now. Everybody knows this work. So how can we start implementing that cross-curricular? I'm going to let Danielle talk here in a second. What questions do you have for me about the way that we implemented what it looks like at Bluegrass daily?
You said that your PLCs, that this was kind of the vehicle that you used, and it was just through that they've changed a little bit. How would you characterize how they've changed?
I would say a lot in the past, they were a lot of department chair meetings. For the most part. This year we have focused on 4 areas. 1 week we go into classrooms and observe. And so teachers have an opportunity to go in and see, and they're not looking at what their colleagues are doing, so to speak. They have a protocol that they follow, and it's what the students are doing, what learning outcomes, which is what we talked about earlier, the knowledge and thinking, collaboration, oral communication, written communication, and agency. What learning outcomes are the students doing? And they choose one piece that they can take back to implement in their rooms, and then they meet with their administrator to talk about what that looks like, and then they go implement it. So that's 1 week. Another week, they have an opportunity to either present a project that they're getting ready to do, or to share with their colleagues something that's coming up, an assessment perhaps. And so they get feedback on that. We have a protocol for that. Another week after they've gone through the project or gone through the assessment, they come back and review the data on that and give each other feedback on what they would change for the next time or what went well. And then the 4th one is 2 teachers from the PLC bring an instructional strategy that they have used, and then they share it with their colleagues. So that's how we've revamped our PLCs, and we have gotten so much more out of them this year than we ever have before. It's been very good. Yes, ma'am.
So do you all meet each week during vertical teams or after school?
Great question. We have 2 PLCs. We have a grade level PLC, and then we have a department PLC. The grade level PLCs meet once a month, and then the department PLCs meet twice a month, and they are held after school. And then we have a faculty meeting once a month.
So it sounds like there's a norm that projects have to be presented before you teach them.
We're getting there. It's still a work in progress, but we are getting there. We want them to share them with somebody, and they do a great job of collaborating on their own, but yes, that is the goal.
Do you see implications for having to think about scheduling differently, or is that stuff pretty? I just wonder if it's bringing those kind of conversations up.
It is. So right now, we are on a 6-period day. Each class is about 61 minutes. It has really made us think about common planning. Because especially when we go to start the cross-curricular, we want to be able to provide that. I know that, and I'll let Ms. Vincent talk about this here in just a second, but I know that in the past, you did or did not have common planning with Mr. Sexton?
This year I do. Last year we did not.
So last year when they were implementing this work, she did not have common planning with the 6th grade ELA teacher, and they spent hours after work working together to be on the same page and to create those projects. So being able to have that makes a huge difference. They still make the time and they still find the time, but any way that we can compensate them with time is helpful.
So, quick question, clarification. With your PLCs, do they meet during their planning?
They meet after school.
After school?
Yes, ma'am. 3:15 until typically about 4. And that doesn't seem like a lot of time, but we are very structured, and we follow those protocols. Each week has a different protocol that we follow, and so with it being that, we get a lot of work done in a short amount of time.
And on the scheduling thing, I'll just speak to this. I think it's a question that comes up early on. So we're first, but we're now implementing to some level in 10 schools, so we're starting to see patterns and pick up on some things. And the schedule thing is always a question. It looks like if you have like a 42, 45-minute period, then yes, a master might need to be redone, right? But most of our middle schools and high schools now are at 5 or 6 period days. That's a big enough chunk that the projects can happen. The major concern is exactly what she just highlighted. Our scheduling concern at this point is not about blocking your day or whatever. It's about getting common plan with the people who like getting the teachers that need to collaborate on projects together. And I think at first we thought it meant, oh, we're gonna have to have block schedules or we need an hour and a half. And that really has not been the case at all. It's just about making sure that the right people in the building have the opportunity to collaborate during the day on the right things, now that we've got the work knocked out. So,
how do you handle PLCs after school with coaches and things like that who have practice right after school?
They know that teaching and learning comes first, and so they're required to be there. They do sometimes have coverage. They get the schedule before school ever starts for the entire year. They have a calendar that has those already scheduled on there, so they know when every meeting, unless it's, I don't know that we've had a pop-up meeting this year. I try not to do that. Like, I try to give them the schedule at the beginning of the year so that they know and can go ahead and plan their entire year. Other questions? And she'll be back with us, but she's going to be on the teacher panel, and then she's going to do a deep dive with you. But any questions that you have for her before she goes to pick up students? Okay.
I'll answer all the questions later for sure.
Definitely. You'll hear a lot in their teacher panel. I want Ms. New to talk about the district involvement. I talked to you a little bit about why Bluegrass decided to go that way. I don't think I told you all that. We were the first school in the district to implement project-based and problem-based learning, but we're not the only school now, so it's great to see that other schools are coming on board. And I'm going to let Brandy talk to you about what that looked like and how that came about.
I feel weird talking about this with my boss in the room, so maybe you should talk inside, Ms. Morgan. But I tell people that I say it was about 4 or 5 years ago. This is our superintendent, Terry Morgan. 4 or 5 years ago, Ms. Morgan came and said, "Hey, we need school to." I'm allowed to say it out loud. Absolutely. We need school to not suck, and this is what I want it to look. No. It is not on a t-shirt, and said, you know, this is what the experience for a kid should look like during the day. And so I say 4 or 5 years ago, I got the opportunity to start, you know, reaching out to folks and figuring out what was going to work for our schools and what we believed in education. We've talked to, that was kind of still during COVID, or is when my research hit. So we actually got to talk to a lot of people because everybody was willing to talk to you on Zoom, right? So I talked to people all over the United States, but one of the first school visits that we got to go back out on was to I-Middle in Owensboro. And we were not even there to see PBL. Like, that was not something that had even pinged on our schedule.
I did not get to go to that.
You did not? Yeah, and so we went to I-Middle, and we're actually there, and I to this day, I can't remember why we thought we were going. I think it was because they said it was innovative, and and they told us we could come if we would mask, and we were like, sweet, let's go. So we took the middle school principals and went. You were with us, and the chief academic officer and myself. And during the teacher panel, or during the student panel, you and I were like, where's the checkbook? I don't know how much it costs, but we want this because the kids, there was just some kids that said some things that really hit us, and they looked like our kids and they sounded like our kids, and it wasn't affluent kids, it wasn't privileged kids, you know what I mean? Like, they just looked like our students, and we were like, we're here for this. So came back, and in the car on the way home, literally, you and I were like, I don't know, is somebody going to pay for this? I don't know. And like, how do we make this happen? And so I cold called New Tech, and Nick is the one who got the email, who is like your all's one of the big guys over there. Yeah, and so we talked to them to see, you know, what it is that they offered and what they did as far as support. This is before the Commissioner of Education kind of came out with his, it was, I don't even know if they were doing the United We Learn like panel or focus groups yet. And so it was before all of that came out. So that is the reason. Now, we did go ahead and shop. We looked at New Tech, and we looked at PBL Works, and then there was another really small kind of homegrown thing that comes out of, I want to say it's like Alabama or Georgia, that says we are PBL. And we looked at those and decided that New Tech was the right partner for us. And we came back, and all this happened within like 2 weeks. And we're like, hey, does anybody want to start? This was in February or March. And we said to our middle and high schools, so this is the thing, and is there anybody who wants to start? If so, could you tell us in 5 days? And Dr. Drury was the only person who was like, yes. So that's why we started here, quite frankly. She was willing and ready and had that in her, and she and I had some of those other conversations. So that's why it started here a year before everybody else. Last summer, so that would have been about 15 teachers. Last summer, we brought on officially 150 more in all five high schools and 2 of our middle schools. And then this summer we're looking at 300 more. Summer after that, 400 more. So this is what we plan to be like the instructional core, the bottom floor of instruction for 6 through 12 in all of our middle and high schools, including our alternative schools in Hardin County. Each school kind of did what Dr. Drury did and went, okay, who are my willing, who are my runners, where are we going to start this with, you know? And then the superintendent spent about a year before that saying to our administrators, this is how school's going to be now, you know. Now, we did look at, like, what do we want school to be and what do we need for our kids? And I think that you'll learn more about this later, but the kids touched on it today. I don't know if you noticed, but their grades, and it's not even, but their grades are on content still, which New Tech refers to as knowledge and thinking. You literally had a little guy, by the way, who said knowledge and thinking today. So just even that consistency of language is huge for us. But so knowledge and thinking is 60% of their grade. Oral communication is 10% of their grade. Written communication is 10% of their grade. Collaboration is 10% of their grade. And then student agency. That is the one they did not say today. Each of those has a rubric, so it's been unpacked as to what oral communication looks like, you know, what are the components of that, and it has about 10 components under it. Those are maybe, did anybody see a rubric in a classroom today? I know we did in Fuller's in the social studies classroom with the box, and so that's their rubric. We don't use the whole thing every time, but it might be on this project this week as you're thinking about oral presentation or oral communication, we're going to look at tone and style. And then it defines what that is and, you know, what the levels of that is. That is huge for us as a district that has 10 middle and high schools, and you're not the only transient one. We're all transient. I mean, it just is what it is. We live this close to a military base, and then we are a Title I district. So, you know, that's an issue for us is transiency. So for us at the district level, it's very important that we are keeping those rubrics intact and breaking down that language for the kids, because now a kid that's at Bluegrass for half a year and then goes to North Middle for a half a year and maybe ends up at, you know, Central Hardin High School, they're going to have some commonalities. They're going to have that language, and we're all speaking the same language, and a kid knows clearly what that means. But I thought it was awesome. The kid started to tick it off on his fingers today, and I was like, well, you got 4 of the 5. You forgot agency, so way to go. You know, Lucas, so just that saturation of the language even. Same thing with our teachers. That is one of the things that as we're meeting with teacher leaders across the district, they are like, we don't care what you do. Can you just make sure everybody's doing the same thing? And so that for us is huge, and I know that may not matter as much in, you know, in a district that has one high school, or maybe it does. It's nice to know that everybody in the math department's doing the same thing. Everybody in the, you know, so for us that's been something really huge for our teachers, is just them saying, yeah, literally, we don't care what you do, just can we all do the same thing. So that's really important to us, again, that we're all using now the same structures, processes, and whatever. I don't know if that's what I was supposed to say or not. Sorry, I started going on there, but.
And I think a lot of that resonates with me too. Like whenever we first started looking into this work, I was under the impression, oh, I'm going to go in, there's going to be chaos every single day. How are we going to control it? It's not. Like, it's the language that you hear. It's the working, the collaboration that you see. It's the thinking. The little guy who said, I'm tired. I think back to that meme where you see the teachers just dragging out the door and the kids are running wild. they should be tired. We're making them think more than we've ever made them think before. And so that to me is very powerful. I'll go back to why Bluegrass. One of the things about us that I hadn't shared with you, we were the lowest academically in the district and had the most behavior referrals in the district. And that was not okay. And so we have cut our disciplinary referrals over 70% in the last 2 years. And we are now, our 6th and 7th grade math has the highest I-ready growth in the district. And so we're seeing growth across the board in all of them. And so are we where we want to be? No, not close. But we're getting there. We're far ahead of where we were and where we would have been had we not implemented this work. And just to hear the students talk about it, that's our why. You know, that we went into some 8th grade classrooms too, and you could see it's very different than 6th and 7th grade. The conversations are different. The way that they talk to each other is different. And so I'm so excited next year just to be able to see it fully implemented and everybody on the same page. That means a lot as well. So I'll hand up. Do we have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Brenda, you said each summer you're bringing in new teachers for onboarding. What does that onboarding process look like?
Yeah, so there is your very first year, New Tech does a 2-day experience that they call residency, and you don't touch a project, nor do you talk about projects. We spent 2 days and looking at adult mindsets, essentially. And one of the most impactful of those 2 days, and the same thing that I always go back to, you know how you have these moments that are starting to emerge, and you were here with me for this one. It was your all's residency, and we were talking about student assets. And so the person who was running the residency from New Tech was like, so what are the assets of your students? This is literally the day after school let out 2 years ago, so it was like, you know, another COVID-y kind of year, and these teachers are wiped, and they all just were like, and by the end of that, like 20 or 30 minutes with some prompting, there was tears because those teachers realized that they weren't necessarily focused on the assets of their students. It is now something that is very apparent in your staff. I've heard members of your staff now talk about that their spouse has something about the way they parent, even because they're looking for the assets and the kids, and they're saying, and it was hard that day, and there was a long moment of silence, and then we had to dig deep. Like, our kids know how to cook because they raise themselves. Our kids know how to, you know, they're very musical because that's how they spend their free time. Our kids, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that was like gut-wrenching for us. But as a staff, so that's a lot of the work that we do in the first 2 days of residency is thinking about mindsets and then learning. You've heard protocols come up a lot. Yes, we use protocols to keep a project running. She uses protocols staff level. We are using protocols district-wide. We're becoming more efficient because of that, because we're seeing the value to that and to everybody knowing some of the same protocols that you might see in a classroom. You might see in her PLC, you might see in her faculty meeting, you might see us use with principals, you might see the superintendent use. So we're trying to keep that, you know, rolling by using those. So they do that 2-day experience. There's a little break, and then they do 4 days of training. It's that kind of like the PBL works, the 101, right? And so they do new schools training, which is 4 days, or NTN 101, right? These two, and maybe I should speak to that because of who's in the room, and I will here in a second. But and then the first year, we have 3 built-in PD days during the year. So teachers work those 3 PD days during the year. They get new learning, and then they also work on projects. We are at the level now that we are doing those as a district, because now Danielle Vincent isn't one of 2 ELA teachers anymore. She's got 2 more at East Hardin. And by the end of next year, there will be 10 of them. So we're trying to leverage that power to really build out some strong anchor projects that are rooted in our community that make sense for our district. So, you know, over a couple of years, we should have some really, really great, you know, projects that we're putting together. I will tell you this, that one of the reasons that we partnered with New Tech is because in year 1, Dr. Jury spent more time with New Tech and with coaches than her teachers did. she put in hours and hours of work because this has to be something that the building level administrator feels passionate about, has a vision for, has their why firmly established, is constantly pushing, right? All the things she's done, the redesigning her PLCs, the intentional work. So that is all something, it didn't happen by, you are amazing, and I'm so glad we started with you. It's part of the reason that we're all here, but those pushes and that constant, full motion, that happened because she was working with someone from New Tech who has 30 years of experience that knew this is coming next. This is in October. It's all going to hit the fan. It will all hit the fan.
So the teachers are designing their own projects?
They are. So they provide some exemplars, but for the most part, our teachers they start with their content. And they are guided in how to, y'all tell me when I need to stop talking and do whatever we need to do. They are guided in how to build their own projects from scratch. They do have some exemplars. And they may use the same ones year after year, but it is not boxed and handed to them. It is very much, we will create this. We'll give you an example to see, but very much teaching them how to fish, right? So like teaching them how to build that project so that it's something that they're invested in, and also something that matches our community. You talked about the Hardin County Water District coming in and in correlation with an English class that was reading A Long Walk to Water, and then talking about water scarcity in Kentucky, not just in Detroit or not just in Africa. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, very much building from there.
One of the things she was talking about with assets, like we did that same work with our teachers. We
wanted to know what their assets were too, so that they could best work together. We ask our students, what are your assets? We do an asset survey with them so that they may identify a strength that we didn't know they had. And so we do that as well. And so again, speaking that same language and just incorporating it into everything we do, being very intentional from one step to the next. Yes, ma'am.
What is New Tech and why did you choose it?
So it's like PBL Works, okay? Sorry, Shannon, close your ears. So it is very similar to PBL Works. They actually came out of, I believe, originally High Tech High together, and then there's a lot of people that have worked for one or the other or both. It's just kind of an offshoot. We picked them very honestly just because it was before. I had the state of Kentucky said, we're going to pay for everybody to be trained. Trust me, we would have went that route. Had we known, but we didn't know because we were starting a year before everybody else. I am still very glad that we made that partnership, though, because I feel like they work from the top down, so they very much empower teachers, but they really hit the leadership level and getting leaders to live this work. A lot of the work we've done this year, like with Jude, like our leaders have a coach that never meets a teacher, like someone who's specific to that. I've been doing a lot of the PBL Works stuff with the state for free just to see, because I don't want us to be over here, right, if the rest of the state is headed this way. A lot of the processes are the same. A lot of the project elements are exactly the same. You can tell that they all started in one place together. New Tech is also very tiny. There's like 70 people in the entire company, and I'll just be very honest with you, for us that was enticing because they had done kind of school by school work in the past, and they had several grants in the works and are looking at district level change, and so for us, they very much handhold us, and I feel like baby us and give us special attention and walk us through things because we're a large district that's going through this in a systematic way. So for us, that was the reason that we went with them. Like I said, all that to the side, I love them. I'm glad we did it. But if they would have said, hey, we're paying for everybody to do PBL Works, let me tell you, I'd be sitting right here today using PBL Works. Dr. Glass, where is my refund check? Dude, have we asked him if we can get some money back? I'm going to if I ever meet him.
Have you talked about residency? And
We did.
Excellent, some of the roadblocks that we hit with residency?
Yeah, because teachers are like, stop it with your kumbaya, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? Just teach me how to write a project or just hand me a project. But it is very, very important work, and the teachers will talk to you about that. Like, it's the same as the teachers who skip talking about assets and skip writing community agreements and skip doing a project or doing a group created contract. Well, 2 days into the project, it will be on fire, and the kids don't know how to work with each other. So they're like, well, maybe I'll try all the kumbaya stuff next time, right? Sorry, I'm just a straight shooter. But and so they'll go back and they'll do the assets work with their students, and then they'll write community norms based on that, and then that'll now craft that into, a group contract. And suddenly, things are not perfect, but the kids, like these kids today, are working through conflicts and solving their own parts. And PBL Works has several of those too. I don't think they play up the assets piece quite as much as NTN does, but they have group contracts and things that you can see, and they talk about the students designing those. So it's an important piece, and if you leave it out, you pay for it in time later. So you might as well take that time first.
One of the things that I noticed in, I think it was that last math classroom we were in, it was a 6th grade class, and they were just starting their unit. Today was like day 1. One of the things that I didn't see evidence of, like seeing some of the other projects and how they're designed, was that driving question piece and the inquiry in the beginning. But at the time, I didn't know that teachers were designing their own projects.
So what we saw today was a project launch in math class. And so one of the differences that you'll see and you'll hear teachers talk about, and the kids even talked about it this morning, is PBL, project-based learning, and PRBL, problem-based learning. So whenever you have something in math, it's much shorter, much more condensed than what you see in projects, because they're taking a problem. Today, ours was surface area and volume, and they are taking that problem and how they can use real-life world skills to solve that. And whereas in the other subjects, it's going to be a project.
Yeah, so in math, it has that real-world driver and kind of a question, and they do an experience. Like the dice, I was in the classroom, I was doing the dice. They were so they do it for real. Or like the ratios, they actually mix the ratios. Then they spend 3 or 4 days doing the skills and teaching the math, and there's still direct instruction, and there's still, rote practice and whatever, and those last maybe 2 to 4 days, whereas a project might last like 2 to 4 weeks. That might be another big difference between New Tech and PBL Works, but I don't think PBL Works actually differentiates any of the planning or the back end between math and everybody else. So you often, I think, in your math departments are the ones who are like, this doesn't work, it's not going to work, it's never going to work. So New Tech's only been doing problem, I think, for just a few years, correct?
Yeah, we used to, because we launched in like early 2000s, we had a big boom like around 2010, and so most of those math teachers got PBL training and did like actual projects. And we heard loud and clear from the field, but also through our like research arm, like that just doesn't work in math. Like it's really, really complicated. Like the kids aren't building the skills the way that they need to. And there's just not a real reason for it. So we do problem-based learning, which are these bursts of real-world problems, but it's still very math-oriented. We do it in a couple of high school science classes as well. A lot of our chemistry teachers will do problem-based learning instead, just because it like fits them better, but it's still like our end goal is the same. We want it to be student-centered, we want it to be inquiry-based, and we want kids to be building the same skills like collaboration and communication in math that they would in other places, but they don't have to do it for the whole project. Some of our math teachers will like kind of plug into bigger projects in like some of our schools. So like there's one teacher who switched his standards of graphing to like the front of like the first semester in 6th grade. This is like a school in Michigan, and because the rest of the projects, like the team that he was working on was doing like a water project with like maps and graphs, and so he like switched a little bit, but in his classroom he's still doing the quick problem-based, just a little more thematic.
So we are not having that math can't do this tension because of the difference, and a lot of the problem-based work they do too is they talk about math key shifts, and it's based on a lot of the like Joe Bowler work, and who else? Who's another one I'm trying to think of? Isn't it Bowler? Yes, mathematical mindsets, and there's another biggie that a lot of the back end of the math comes out of. So we've not really had any more pushback from a math department than we have anybody else because of that small tweak. And I'm a math person. Like I did the math version of when we did new schools training. We split up our subject areas. So like math kind of spent half of their first 4 days together, learning something math specific and doing math specific problems. And in social studies, same thing. They kind of did a social studies exemplar and they planned together. And then science. And then we're splitting off CTE now, I think, right? Yeah, I think it is CTE that we're splitting off as the other one we're going now. Oh, ELA.
ELA.
Yeah.
ELA and social studies did a
Or
lot
together.
of work together. but they also separated at certain times so that they felt like it was applicable to their content, what they were teaching, and they felt like that it was really geared towards their professional learning and not another content area. And I think our math teachers benefited from that the most because that's usually the department that we hear from.
And please know, and like I said, once again, Shannon, close your ears. Like, we are so glad that we're working with New Tech. I'm so glad anybody else is working with PPL Works. Like, we just love, because I'm already, you know what I mean? Like, if we're all headed the same way, that's just going to help us, like, right? So that everyone is doing, it's still the same thing at the end of the day. How we're getting there might be slightly different. And there are some tweaks. Like I said, I think that math thing is huge for us. I think the leadership level is huge for us. Like, that's what we needed. So I'm glad that we found them. But, you know, anybody else who's using something else, I'm thrilled. Like, I can't wait to go to Allen County next year. You know what I mean? And see what their projects look like. I would think that we can all learn from each other and then hopefully push the same agenda for our kids too. It just happens to be that this is where we ended up because of the timing. I would say that if Nick was in the room, I'd be too intimidated.
I'm just telling you.
You're the nice one. You jump over the table and tackle me.
Any other last minute questions? We have our teacher panel getting ready to go. You guys are going to eat lunch while they're going to talk to you.
Are they going to eat lunch?
No, we're not
will.
eating.
They will.
We are, and we think we got it.
I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that's a lot.
You're fine.
In the 6th grade ELA class, the teacher was doing her station rotations. Is that something that they're learning to do now because of this work and that collaborative model, or is that something you all have always done here at the school?
That is not because of this work. Sorry, didn't realize that was that. Somebody late for lunch. That is not because of this work, but it is something that they have started to do as well. We talked a lot about co-teach station rotations, and so some teachers have seen the benefit of doing that even if it's not a co-teach classroom, and so they have implemented that too. We had a lot of questions about will stations work with this work, and it does. Lots of instructional strategies.